Actually, Debbie, maybe you could take on the part that Andrea was going to talk about. We wanted to briefly mention the new rebate for heat pump water heaters and the impact of that on Palo Alto. Would you mind just popping up and giving a quick?
Sure. As of today, is my understanding that Palo Alto, as a municipal utility, is now eligible for the tech statewide resource rebates as well. We weren't able to get those in the past. So as of today, they've opened it up for us to do it. So because of that, the city is going to apply that money to the heat pump water heater program. And they're going to do two things with it. Excuse me. One is they're going to reduce the baseline price, which was set previously at $2,700. They're going to lower that down. And then in addition, they're putting a lot of additional money into helping to prepare homes so that they can be ready for the heat pump water installation. In other words, if you have a longer distance to go for the wiring to be able to be set up, or there's other kind of problems that need to be fixed up before you can do it, they'll put the money into that. That extra money will go to the contractor that they've hired, which is still the same company, Synergy, that they've been working with in the past, but it should reduce the costs considerably. And these costs are going to be down to, I don't think I have it right in front of me. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's going to be probably another close to $1,000 less, which will be really exciting for everybody. So I know, for example, one person who got a bid from the city with their program because of the way his house was configured and how he needed to have the extra wiring put in. He got a proposal for $4,800, and he went, whoa, that's quite a bit more than the 27 I'd thought about. So he said, I'm going to just hold off. So now the city said they would send notes to all those people who had already gotten to the proposal stage but had not signed on, give them notes to be the first people to buy into the program. And it's going to be at a really significantly lower price for the next 6 months. And then they will have to increase it a little bit, but it still won't be up to what it had been earlier. So the hope is this will engender more people jumping into the program now, especially those who had sort of balked at the cost that was originally proposed to them. So it should be kind of exciting to see what happens in the next few months.
Thanks, Debbie. Just very important for us to understand that. I want to make sure everyone heard it. So, Vicki, I'd like to turn it over to you, and you can introduce your Air District colleague, and then go through the agenda in the way that works best for you. And then I'm going to ask if we could kind of wait till the end of your presentation, and then we can get questions from the group. Does that work for everybody? All right, take it away, Vicki. And you can just start sharing. I have very open settings on my Zoom.
Okay, fabulous. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to join you tonight, and thank you for the work you do every day in our community. I mean, it's essential to have community partners like you. And yes, Debbie, I'm so glad you briefed I was so thrilled when at the SCAP meeting a couple of weeks ago, we found out about the tech money to help our heat pump water heater program. So that's just a very exciting thing. So with respect to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, or BAAQMD, as you all know it, first of all, I'm Vicki Veenker. I'm one of the directors, one of 24 directors. I am one of 4 directors that represent Santa Clara County. And I bring greetings from Dr. Philip Fine, our executive officer, and I am delighted that I actually brought and have with us here tonight Viet Tran, who is the Deputy Executive Officer of Public Affairs, so for our communications topic. So thank you, Viet, for being with us tonight. Do you want to say anything about how long you've been at the Air District and briefly what you do?
Thank you, Director Veenker. Again, Viet Tran, Deputy Executive Officer of Public Affairs for the Air District. I've been with the Air District for a total of a whopping 5 weeks. To the Air District, but not new to the regulatory framework and the good work that the Air District does. I come from public service, 30 years in public affairs, and I started my career in the city of Los Angeles working for 2 mayors, a city councilwoman, working on environmental justice, environmental issues, liaison to LAX, a major polluter in the area, and working on behalf of the councilwoman and the mayor's constituents on environmental justice issues and the impacts of air pollution at LAX and our other regional airports in LA. And then spent some time working for a regulated utility, Southern California Edison. And then most recently, I came from the electric and gas utility in New Orleans, Louisiana. I was the Director of Public Affairs for Entergy New Orleans prior to joining the Air District. And so thank you, Director Veenker, for the opportunity to be here, and thank you all for the opportunity to be here as well.
Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to run through some things, but I'm going to keep it kind of informal so that we can engage. And then, of course, we can have questions and talk about whatever you'd like, because I'd like to take back from you. I mean, a huge part of what I'm interested in is hearing from you, your thoughts and advice as to how best we communicate about our regulatory efforts and how we can partner with you. We have some thoughts, we can tell you what some other folks are up to, but I definitely want this to be an interactive evening. So let me just start with the basics to make sure we're all on the same page, most of which you will know. But as you know, on March 15th of this year, the Air District Board adopted amendments to 2 of our building appliances rules, regulations 9.4 and 9.6. 9.4 has the fancy name of nitrogen oxides from fan type central furnaces. And 6 is nitrogen oxide emissions from natural gas fired boilers and water heaters. So better known as phasing out gas water heaters and furnaces, kind of. So let me say what I mean by that. So we often, you'll hear in general parlance and discussion that we're phasing out these gas water heaters and furnaces, but specifically what these rules govern is point of sale emission standards for small, typically residential and commercial water and space heating systems. Because remember that BAAQMD has jurisdiction over air quality and public health. It is not per se a climate protection agency, although it is important and fabulous when those 2 things come together, as they did here. So as not to exceed our jurisdiction, we call greenhouse gas reduction a co-benefit of the air quality regulation and public health benefits that we seek with them. So basically what we did is we outlawed sales of new appliances, meeting these two categories, that emit nitrogen oxides that impact local and regional air quality and contribute to the formation of ozone and secondary particulate matter. So PM 2.5 is something that we think a lot about and talk a lot about reduction of. So not per se gas appliances, but at present, there are no gas-powered appliances that meet the standards. So you can do the math. So again, as you probably know, the timeline is that in January 1, 2027 is when only 0 NOx water heaters can be sold or installed in the Bay Area. So our jurisdiction is all 9 counties or 10 million people in the Bay Area. So that is 3 years from now. 2 years later, January 1st of 2029 is when only 0 NOx furnaces can be sold or installed in the Bay Area. So until then, you can still buy new ones. After that, you can still repair and refurbish your old ones. So as of right now, that's how those standards lie. We did not regulate gas stoves. It's just the water heaters and the furnaces. So that's just a little background. Hopefully, Viet thinks I've got it right so far. Said about some of the current BAAQMD materials that we have. So there is an entire, let me see if I can bring it up and share. There's an entire web page devoted to these 2 rules on our website. And bear with me 1 minute. Of course, this is one of the things I had up earlier, then I ran off to another meeting. So I have to get it back up.
Yeah, if it's a Vicki page, Dr. Veenker, I can put it in the chat as well.
Oh, why don't you do that, and maybe people can look at it themselves. But on it, you'll see there's just, all kinds of helpful information about these rules. And there's fact sheets. There's information about our implementation working group, which I'll be talking about in a minute. There is information about how you can participate in that working group, or not in it as a member, but at its meetings, attend them and such. And so there's an entire bit of information specifically to that. Then there's also, and this I think I can share, there's a couple of materials that we have prepared. One is a fact sheet. So hopefully you are now looking at the Air District Appliance Rules fact sheet. And this is something that you can use with the public. This was after our regulations were passed. And so it explains what I just explained about what the rules are, about the health impacts that we are trying to fight with zero NOx and lowering PM 2.5. And it sets forth the compliance timeline I just referenced. So that's just a very simple one-pager. But there's also something that's a little more in depth. And let me pull it up. It's an FAQ sheet. And this, 1 minute. Okay. Here we go. So this is a little longer. It's a few pages, but it's frequently asked questions about our Air District Appliance rules. So it goes over what the rules cover, like I just described, why the Air District adopted them, talks about the health benefits, a little more detail on the timeline. I kind of skipped over the ultra low NOx requirements that start on January 1st of this coming year, so in a couple of months. And I didn't get all the way to the January 1st, 2031 water heaters, the big one. So, because most people, when we're thinking about trying to get our residents ready to comply and to support this, it's really the 2027 water heaters and the 2029 furnaces that most people think of. But there's some more detail here. Explains what I just explained about the not being a natural gas ban per se. It doesn't cover stoves, doesn't cover propane. The fact that right now there aren't gas-fired appliances that meet the zero NOx standards. Talks about the advantages of electric appliances. It talks about whether you have to replace your appliances immediately upon implementation of the rule. No, it's upon burnout. Talks about how we're helping renters so that landlords don't just pass on the cost of compliance and to renters who may be able to afford it. So equitable implementation of this rule is a huge priority of the Air District. A lot of work is being done to improve affordability. So that this isn't a financial burden. So things like Debbie just talked about for the Palo Alto water heater program, we're going to be looking at writ large for the entire Bay Area community. Grid capacity is a big thing. We've got a lot of questions about that when this was in front of the board. Years worth of work went into trying to assure people that California would be able to get it together to support this. And so here it cites for the public that by 2030, at least 60% of our electricity must be renewable. And by 2045, all retail electricity sold in California must be renewable and zero carbon. So, there's various things that help us with our messaging here. Talks about reliability, talks about your electrical panel. And we explain how, as technology, as lower amp, low voltage appliances are coming on and technology develops and various other things, grid upgrades and such, that there should not be a problem there. But again, that's something that we're going to watch and support and push in these next few years so that it's not a a hurdle for this rule. So I know it talks about older homes, and then it talks about the implementation working group, which I'll come back to in a minute. Again, affordability and such. So this is something that you can share. We can send out, I think there's links. Some of these are online, or some I may just have as PDFs, but either way, we can make sure and send them over so that you can have them available and know what we've developed thus far. So that's kind of the materials question that I was asked. And then the second talk about was public reactions to date. And really, it hasn't evolved a lot since the debate surrounding adoption of the rules or the amendments to the rules. As I think most of you know, we had 565 commenters. We had about 300 people show up live and give oral comment to us on the day of the hearing. So we've had a lot of that. And so since then, I don't think there's been a lot of additional feedback to us or different kind of discussions or issues raised. But what's going on now is there's an implementation working group that has been formed because as part of the resolutions we adopted, we committed to creating one. And it has, I think we had about 40 members, and these are stakeholders. So these are people in government, in the labor community. These are people that are contractors that would be building the grid. These are experts of various types, medical. These are people who are good at getting the financial pieces, all the different advisors who can help address the issues that I've talked about so far. And so the idea there is that like the purpose of it is to provide input to the Air District staff with periodic reports on how we're progressing toward implementation, and specifically on technical readiness of the market, the things I was talking about, the appliances, the grid, et cetera, and equitable transition to compliant appliances, so that the transition doesn't unduly burden a particular economic class or group. So those two things are really, really important for implementation of these rules, is to make sure that we're technically ready and make sure that we can do it equitably so people can afford it. Those were huge public feedback during the debate and adoption of these rules. So the implementation working group has already had 2 virtual meetings on Zoom, one in May and one in August. And there's one coming up in a few days on November 7th. It's in the afternoon, 1 to 4 p.m. And you can attend and listen, and there would be an opportunity to provide public comment. I think at the end of the meeting. I haven't seen the agenda. And there is an agenda in advance. I don't know if it's come out yet. Viet, do you happen to know if the...
Yes, Director Veenker, the agenda is out. I will post the link right now to the meeting. The meeting is November 7th from 1 to 4 p.m. And I will put the agenda on the screen when you're ready.
Fabulous. Actually, if you want to, I wasn't going to talk through the agenda, but would that be helpful? Would people like to see what's on the agenda? We can pop that up right now. Is that a sure? Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that?
It should be on the screen shortly. Please let me know.
It says you've started screen sharing, but I'm just getting a black screen. Does anyone else? Can others see it? Oh, it just came up.
There's the agenda.
Although on top of it is a square that says Zoom quit unexpectedly. So I can't see what's on the actual agenda. Well, anyway, did we lose Viet? Wonder. Oh no, there you are.
Just
can't-
his voice.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Can others hear him?
No.
No, okay. We can't hear you because I was going to ask you just to read it, but why don't I move on? And if, oh, one more time. Maybe your connection isn't strong enough to do that or something. Oh, there it
There
is.
we go.
All right. I can't see it quite that small on my screen. You want to read the highlights for us?
Oh, okay. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So the item number one is a welcome. And
Uh-oh. We lost you again, Viet. Let me see. Maybe I can make it bigger. Well, okay. Well, we can read it. So there's the draft work plan, timeline, roles, and responsibilities, subcommittee summaries. Yeah. See the equity subcommittee and the technical subcommittee. That's what I told you are the two big pieces of this. We do have technical consultants, and so they're trying to figure out what all they need from them and the future topics. Looks like there will be a panel presentation on household pre-planning and electrification readiness. And it's gone. Well, anyway, but you can see, so let me just say that one of the points of the implementation working group is that there was a lot of discussion of so-called off-ramps, the what if worries. What if the grid isn't ready? What if the appliances aren't available? What if they're not affordable? And so working to try to make sure those what ifs don't happen is the goal, because 2 years before each of those deadlines we were talking about earlier, there will be a report from the IWG and from staff to the board about progress to ensuring that they are available. There is technical availability, there is accessibility. And so 2 years before the first deadline is really soon, because that's just 1 year from now. So this implementation working group is going to go and deal with all of these affordability and equity issues for the entire Bay Area. And there's a huge diversity of incomes and economic situations in our Bay Area. So that report is due in a year. And then likewise for the 2029 deadline for furnaces, which is a heavier lift than the water heaters, that is of course then due in 2027, which is 3 years from now. So then that's going to include all the grid stuff and other appliance information. So that's why the working group has technical members and a variety of people on it, is to really help advise the Air District staff as to what can, should, and needs to be done to make sure that there's no hurdles to moving forward with implementation. So thank you, Viet, for that. Let's see, then there was a question about BAAQMD's funding and staffing for communicating the changes. Well, we have Viet, so there's a good start. But it is a big change, and there will be a lot of work to be done. And there's definitely some partnering opportunities with all of you and others in the Bay Area, in the advocate community. And I can talk about that in a minute, but I wanted to ask Viet, is there anything you'd like to say about staff, how that's going to play out, what we have in terms of resources at the Air District for developing a communication strategy?
Director Veenker, and I apologize for the technical difficulties, everybody. My Zoom is acting up, and I'm at work right now, and I don't know what's going on.
Oh no, it's the Air District.
Technical difficulties. Maybe it's because I'm here after hours, and so it's maybe we go to a lower bandwidth. Who knows? Thank you, Dr. Veenker, for the opportunity to share what we're doing for communication. So to answer your question directly, we do have funding and staffing to communicate these changes. And so we are committed to ensuring that we have the bandwidth and we have the personnel to ensure a very thorough communication. We're also going to be educating contractors and stakeholders to ensure that we're training them, and we're going to create a training video for contractors to understand how to implement the rules and how it applies to appliances. And then certainly, I also wanted to share with everyone that we would encourage you to coordinate with a coalition as well. And I don't know, Director Veenker, if you wanted to talk about that coalition, if you wanted me to. There is a coalition that is advocating the implementation of these rules.
Yeah, I'll just mention it, and you might know a little more. But I also bring greetings from Greg Nudd, who is another Deputy Executive Officer at BAAQMD. I spoke with him this morning, and he's the Deputy Executive Officer of Science and Policy. He's our technical guy. But he mentioned to me that a good next step for all of you would be to coordinate with this advocate coalition that is beginning to organize, that Viet was just referencing. And the group is calling itself Bay Area Clean Air. And some of the groups that are part of the coalition are SPUR, RMI, Drawdown Bay Area, NRDC, San Francisco Bay Physicians for Social Responsibility, Emerald Cities Collaborative, the San Francisco Bay chapter of the Sierra Club, and Earth Justice. And so we have a contact there, a contact name that we could give out to you, and phone number. I don't know if some of you know her. She's the Sustainability and Resilience Policy Director at SPUR. But they're kind of already forming. So if there were interest, I'm sure they would welcome you. I don't know, Viet, you might know more about what if anything, they've done so far. I just know about them, not much of what they've done.
I see Julie just stated that that several of the members of the BACA are actually here right now.
Yay! Well, do you want? I mean, I'm happy to stop from it. Do you want to say something about that?
I'd love to. I'm actually leading our communications subgroup for Bay Area Clean Air. So thank you so much, Viet and Vicki, for this great presentation and all the work you and your staff have already done. It's really exciting. I work with Physicians for Social Responsibility and also with Bay Area Clean Air. And we did submit a report of recommendations that includes some communications sort of guidance that we thought might be helpful. And I'd love to meet with you, Viet, to go over that if you have time at some point. And we also are working with Sunstone Strategies. They are an amazing PR firm. They recently did a poll to find out what are the best messaging to convey this kind of new air quality rules to the public. And they have some great advice, and just a couple of the top items that they came up with are that people resonate well when they hear air quality standards, but that NOx standards does not, they don't, they kind of glaze over when they hear NOx standards, but air quality works really well. And also HVAC and water heaters. And Viet, I see you nodding, so perhaps you already have seen this and know it, but we'd love to, Bay Area Sunstone's part of our coalition as well. So we'd love to meet with you and share more with you at some point and do whatever we can to support your work. We have networked with so many groups in the Bay Area, and we are committed to trying to help amplify the communications that the Air District is planning on doing. Thank you.
Right now, in fact, I'll send it for everyone in the meeting now to if you'd like to follow up. But Julie, I'll certainly follow up with you for a follow-up meeting. Thank you so much.
I'll put my email in the chat for you.
Oh, that's just terrific. And when you're talking about meeting, I don't want to forget to mention that when I was talking to Philip Fine this morning about the fact that we were going to be having this meeting tonight, he said, you know, if they want to come meet with me, that's fine. He said, I'm happy. We really care about our community partners. We really want to engage with them. So, you know, he's a busy guy, but he offered it up. I didn't even ask. So just so you know, you all are welcome and wanted. So I didn't want to forget that. But also, Julie, I just have to take a moment here to say that when I was sitting on that dais, and the day that this came to the board, and we had 300 people, 1 minute each, and you know, you think, oh, you're just going to glaze over, and you know, you don't. How can you listen to 300 people and just stay focused? You know, to all these little 1 minute. I have to say, I was wrapped. That, you know, the attention. I just was fascinated because in a minute, everybody's just so on it with their message, and I really took it in. And I know, Debbie, you were there, and probably several others of you were there. But the two groups that I remember the most, that were the most persuasive for me, the second most persuasive were the people in the white coats, the physicians who showed up. And I remember one woman said, you all have the power that I don't, because when people come into my office, they're sick. And I do everything I can to help them, but you can prevent it. And it was just so powerful coming from someone who actually treats people and sees the health impacts every day. So I just want to thank the physicians who showed up, because it was really impactful, I thought.
Thank you, Vicki. I will pass that along. And Dr. Brett Anderson was one of those speakers. He's here right now, but you can see I'm just beaming because you just made my whole year. Thank you. So that all our effort paid off. It's really great to hear.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I have to tell you though, I said there were two groups, and the one that upstaged you, if Brett could probably guess it, having been there, were the middle school youth who showed up from an under-resourced community in Oakland. And they showed up with their teacher. And, you know, we had this very organized thing, you know, 2 podiums, you know, alternating. So there was not even the time of someone walking away and someone else coming up. We were just going through our 1 minute things, except for them. We had them, they all lined up to one podium, and it happened to be the one right in front of me, because I'm the junior most member of this board. So I was way at the end, right by the podium, which was amazing. They were probably 5 feet in front of me. And these students, you could tell they were nervous, and they showed up with their, you know, but being younger than me, they showed up with their iPhones and their notes, and they gave the most compelling testimony about why we need this rule. And they had done a survey of their classmates and their classmates' family, and how many had been impacted by asthma and other respiratory diseases. And they had statistics and facts and figures, and they were wildly impressive. But they also, I remember one student in particular, he stood there and he said, I'm here as a concerned sibling. He said, I have 2 younger brothers, and I teach them to play soccer. It's what we do when I have to watch them. And he said, and one of them has asthma and, you know, can't play like he'd like to. And he said, so I'm here to ask you to help stop that. And it was just, you know, wow. We think of these public hearings, you know, as sort of going through the motions sometimes, but that day it really was not. It was incredibly impactful. But so sorry, I'm digressing here, but I just wanted to share that, because it was, I thought it really brought home the importance of the work that you all do every day, and that the Air District and other organizations do. Okay, so thank you for that indulgence. So let's see. Another question was, has anyone calculated the regional savings due to the health benefits of reducing Bay Area indoor and outdoor pollution? So yes, in part. So BAAQMD, and at the time we put this out there, BAAQMD's calculated a regional savings of up to $890 million per year in avoided health impacts due to air pollution. And that's just from outdoor pollution, because we don't regulate indoor air pollution. And so we haven't done those additional calculations. But, you know, gas stoves are a big driver of indoor air pollution, even though they're small contributors to outdoor pollution. So they're not covered by the rule. That's not taken into account. But the, yeah, $890 million. But even more important than that is these rules, these amendments are expected to prevent 85 premature. There's a real impact of this. And then I think there was a question about, are there different messaging strategies as we approach the proposed transition dates? And I'm sure there will be, you know, as these things we've discussed have you know, evolve, as the IWG does its work, as we see, you know, how the grid upgrades go, the appliances that come on the market, the money that's available to supplement purchase, that kind of thing. I'm sure the messaging will evolve as we get closer. I don't know, Viet, anything more you want to add on that front?
You've covered it very thoroughly, Director.
Okay, Hillary, I think, did I hit all the, I think I hit your main points there.
Yeah.
I mean, mainly we're, what I want to say is that, you know, we're eager to be in close communication with all of you. And I would absolutely love to hear, and I'm sure Viet would as well, you know, thoughts, ideas, feedback, criticism, questions that you all have that even if I can't answer or Viet can't answer after a full 5 weeks on the job, that we can take back the feedback and go get some answers for you.
So can people raise their hands? Can you stay a few more minutes, Vicki? And anyone has questions or feedback?
Yes.
Please raise your hand, and Vicki, why don't you just go ahead and pick people's hands that are rapidly raising their hand. Tom, fastest to the hand right there.
Yes, Tom, you were first up.
Yep. Hello. Thanks so much for having this meeting with us. You mentioned, you know, the smooth rollout of the rules, and, you know, we do see the objective is getting started on time and starting to try the process that will save those 85 lives per year, year after year. And I don't, you know, this is such a big solution to a big problem. The appliance standards are a big solution. I see they won't, you know, there will be dilemmas in implementing them. It will be difficult. And I'm wondering if you have any insights as to what kind of information or evidence that the board will need to see in the 2 years before report that will give them the confidence that it will be convenient enough to implement the rules and start the process of saving lives. Or, you know, in other words, the flip side is what will they want to do to keep not saving the lives? And, you know, because that's the alternative, and they need to see it that way, that it's deciding the lives aren't worth the inconvenience. And so I'm wondering, what will it take to help them see?
Yeah, well, you know, part of that is a political answer. There's not an objective answer, because, you know, when we voted on this and nobody knew how the vote was going to go, and it ended up being, you know, it was 22 of us, I think, were there that day out of the 24. So I think it was 21-0-1 with 1 abstention. And the abstention was Director Mueller in San Mateo County. He was very, very concerned about the rural parts of San Mateo County, and that, you know, this was going to strain the grid, or people would be without. You know, this was right after the storms, and people had been without power for extended periods of time, and he was very, very concerned. So I think it's going to take enough evidence that this won't unduly burden the grid, that people won't be left high and dry. I mean, one of the things I didn't mention, but that we talked a lot about, was having, if someone's gas appliance goes out and they want to, you know, they're going to transition to an electric appliance, that will have loaner units. I was just talking to Greg Nutt about that this morning. Because I don't know that we've really talked much about that in Palo Alto for our own water heater program, but he says it's pretty simple just to get someone, you know, if you're gonna stay, you know, if you're gonna stay with gas because you can't get a loaner, but I mean, because you can't get electric fast enough before these rules are implemented, you know, maybe we get them a loaner here, but to try to make it so that people won't feel overburdened or, you know, that it's too inconvenient, as you said, that's one of the things we do. So I think it's going to be being able to show that we're not, you know, people aren't going to have to move out of their homes because they can't afford to install an electric appliance. You know, that we've dealt with that. Either the market has changed enough or we have enough subsidies to deal with that. And the grid thing, but the grid thing is probably more for the furnaces. But really it's just going to be that we have to show enough that politically you don't have enough directors that get nervous enough to try to slow this down.
Thank you.
Oh, Gerard, do you go by Jerry or Gerard?
Jared, actually.
Jared, sorry,
But I'll
thank
go
you.
by anything. First off, thank you so much for your work on this. I mean, I think these decisions may well be the single most important decisions on changing CO2 emissions, both here and the knock-on effects in California and elsewhere. So I'm really thrilled that you guys voted that way, and I'm really thrilled that you're here to help you get that done. I have a specific question. You talked a little bit about equity and financial equity, and I know that traditionally applies to, you know, certain defined demographic groups, but the overall bill, my reckoning is that a given water heater needs about a $4,000 subsidy to make it on par with gas. And so across the Bay Area, that would be about $8 billion over the cost of the entire program, $800 million a year, or just about what you're saving on health. Now, I know you're not the piggy bank, and that many other groups, tech, the state, PCE, PG&E, and so on, are working on this. So I'm wondering what BAAQMD sees as its role in looking at the overall finances of the whole thing, given that there are a lot of players in this question.
Yeah, I think our role, first of all, is to see what the plans are of the various agencies, federal government, the state government, you know, to work hand in hand with groups like CARB and others, and then to do an assessment and see what we think the needs will be, and then advocate for those. So that's writ large. The specifics, I actually don't know the details of exactly how we're going to go about that. I know that's part of why we have the implementation working group, because the costs, like you just mentioned, the 4,000, well, those are going to shift and evolve as we go, and we're going to have the experts who will know the market. So we have, you know, we have a variety, as I mentioned, of experts who can help us assess that amount. But I'm going to ask Viet if you have more specific information that we could share now, and or where and how we can get more to this group. Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
No.
You want to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you, Director Veenker, for the opportunity to answer that question. So,
Brad, I think you're not muted.
But to Director Veenker's point, right, it is evolving. I will put in the chat right now a link to the incentives for helping to make this more affordable to all communities in the 9-county area of the Air District. But yes, it certainly is evolving. And as Director Veenker said, the implementation working group will be developing what the means will be and what the costs will be along the way, right? So I invite everyone to, as Director Veenker said earlier, to join the next meeting on November the 7th. I did put the link in. I didn't. I'll put it in now. I thought I put it in earlier. The link to the meeting. But again, yeah, please click the link on the incentives. But it's a start, right, to assist our communities in being able to pay for this full implementation.
Thank you. And I just as a side comment about the IWG, so we passed these regs in March, and then it took some time to just even constitute that group, because you've got to go out and you've got to try to balance it. And so they've met a couple times, but they're really in their initial stages of trying to define exactly the scope of what they're doing and their timeline and the how and all of that. So that's not necessarily bad news, but the less great news is that they're not super far along in some of these processes you're asking about. But the good news is there's lots of time to give input to them and help shape them. So, Andrea.
Thanks. I'm just wondering, after the BAAQMD ruling, was there discussion in the Palo Alto Council about this? And do you feel like the members are well versed in what was passed and kind of what's in the pipeline?
There has not been a lot of comment at council, a lot of discussion. It's not been on the agenda, I should say, in any way. I did mention it during council member reports and described it at a high level as to what we were doing and the implementation date. I also sit on the SCAP committee, and it is keenly aware of this and what's going on and the timeline. So, you know, I'm not supposed to have, I mean, I talk with the SCAP members, but obviously there's Brown Act rules that keep me from saying too much to too many of my colleagues outside of public meetings. Yeah. Debbie.
I just have a question about the implementation group. I was looking to see if the members are named. Is it in public record who are those members? And if so, is there a way for us to communicate with them other than at the particular meetings that are coming up?
Well, just this morning, I asked Greg Nudd that question because I'd asked before and they didn't have the group constituted. So he gave me a list of names. I can get those to you. I don't know that it's posted yet on our website. At least I couldn't find it readily. So I need to get it in a shareable form. But yes.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Just response regarding that list. I can share the groups that are represented on the implementation working group. It's affordable housing, community-based organizations, environmental justice, equity organizations, labor and building trades, local government, market rate housing representation, property management, apartment representation, state agencies, subject matter experts, technology entrepreneurs, technology manufacturers, and the utilities and the clean energy sector.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, because we have by categories, and then we have individuals. So great. Larry, you could have just walked over. You're around the corner. Larry's my neighbor. Larry, you're muted.
Is there an organized opposition to these proposals? And if so, what can they do other than trying to persuade members of the BAAQMD board to do things differently?
I am not aware of any organized opposition. I suspect when we get closer to that 2-year, report, that we may learn of some, but I'm not aware of any right now. Viet, do you know anything about any organized opposition?
Not off the top of my head. I'm happy to follow up on finding out if there was organized or is currently organized opposition.
Yeah, we it was funny because on the day that all the public the comment was given on the day of the rule change hearing, at first I had my little pen and paper because I was keeping tally of for and against and for and against. And finally, it was so ridiculous because basically everybody was for. I just put my pen down. But there were a few. There were a handful. Labor is split on this one. So there were a few, but it was vastly, wildly outweighed at that hearing by the proponents. So hopefully that will continue.
Good, thank you.
That's the last hand that I see.
Well, so let's be respectful of your time. We will, I think this has been terrific. Really appreciate your invitation to join. We learned earlier today about the BAAQMD group, the Bay Area, the whatever it stands for, Clean Air Group. So we're very excited about that and looking forward to figuring out how we can support it. John McKenna is on this call. He's another member of that group, and I know there are folks from RMI and many other good organizations are on that team too. So I will commit to anyone who's interested. I will provide both a copy of the chat and a link to this recording and any other information. Vicki, maybe we'll have you back if you wouldn't mind, maybe, a few months ahead and kind of see where everybody is and making sure that we're supporting the teams in the best possible way. Anyone else have any wonderful closure comments to make before we all head back to our evenings?
I just noticed that Sarah was trying to ask a question, but didn't have a raised hand thing.
Oh, okay. I have time for one more. It looks like Tom may have another one. Is Sarah?
Hi, thank you. Just a quick question. I'm curious to hear what communication channels you're planning on utilizing in reaching the general public.
I'm going to let our communications guy take first stab at that.
Question, and thank you, Director Veenker. So we will be using multiple avenues of communication. In addition to our communications, our public information officers and our communications team communicating. We also, okay, is my link okay? I just saw a Zoom quit unexpectedly notice.
We can still hear you. It's a little clipped, but go ahead.
Thank you, Director. So yeah, we're going to be working with groups like Far High. I think y'all are probably familiar with Far High, the group that the Bay Area Clean Air Coalition that was mentioned earlier. And so we're very much planning on doing a detailed communications plan, and we welcome all of your suggestions from your group as well as to the best way to communicate the implementation.
Great. Tom, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just had one last comment about that question about how did cities respond to hearing the news of the BAAQMD rule on March 15th. As I look at it, it seems like it is immensely impactful for any city with a climate action plan to support the timely implementation of this rule, which essentially takes over all of the marketing and implementation aspect of trying to get community cooperation into taking on the clean air devices instead of continuing to reinstall gas devices. So that means there's probably a great strategy among cities and community choice agencies to really front load their budgets into market transformation in this year, next year, and 2025. So some of it can show up in the 2025 report to the board.
No, that's a good point. And no, I think you're right, because it's so synergistic. We will be supporting the marketing efforts that cities would otherwise be making. We'll be supporting the funding efforts that cities are all going to be struggling with individually. So I think this was terrific. I'm so glad you asked me to come tonight, because it's got me sort of refocused and thinking about the ways that we can interact back and forth. You'll be, you may want information from me every now and then. I may ring you up first and say, hey, looks like there's some initiative that's going on either with the Bay Area Clean Air Group, but we want to spread out more broadly, or just otherwise that Viet and his colleagues are putting together, and we'd like a chance to share with you. So yeah, I do think that from time to time, it would make sense to connect over this, because it sure does seem like we ought to be, coordinated and rowing in the same direction. All right. Well, Viet, thank you for staying late at the Air District. I got to come home, and I appreciate you being there and being with us tonight. It's terrific. And thank you again so much for the invitation. It was delightful to be with you tonight.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate all your time. And thank you, everyone. I thought this was a great conversation. So everyone have a good evening.
All right. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Director.